This story starts on April 1st, 1997, where the most eventful thing that happened in that month in the real world was Ellen DeGenerate telling the whole world she was a lesbian, as if we even give a shit about her or her stupid fucking show.
I'm gay.
On April 1st, 1997, in the border town of El Paso, Texas, a group of nobodies came together and they really liked Pokemon battling. These people, whose identities are never made public, founded the Indigo League of Texas in El Paso, or better known as the ILTEP, Pokemon League division created for trainers to duke it out and really prove their skills against others. The founding of ILTEP really shook the United States at the time, as Texas was a state that primarily consisted of the working class and getting a fucking job, oil and cattle and resources, so not many people would pay attention to the newly formed league, as many have tried to make something like this happen, but have always folded. But then 7 years would pass, and in 2003, ILTEP would now become an official championship division by the Gym Challenge Association, or the GCA. Meaning that trainers who wanted to go pro now did not have to go to New York and battle in their Sapphire League, or in Los Angeles, or whatever state. The moment ILTEP was recognized as official, they had their eyes set on the Sun Bowl that belonged to the University of Texas in El Paso, or UTEP. The reason why they had their sights on this old-ass football stadium in particular is because they wanted to turn it into a state-of-the-art gym for Pokemon battles in the country. And when it was finished, it would be in third place for the best stadiums to battle in, with first place being New York and second place being Los Angeles. They had received some controversy, as some people wanted the Sun Bowl to stay the same because of its historic value to the city. The college games would only be played there and that Monster Jam would only be held there, but they did keep the football elements in mind, as the stadium is a dual-purpose stadium, can be used for Pokemon battles and football games, with even one NFL team playing a game there. They fucking lost. While all this seems great and maybe even irrelevant, there is something suspicious. ILTEP paid for the whole thing out of pocket, and the moment they were official, they started work on the stadium. But ILTEP, just like every other sports division, relies on sponsorships, ticket sales, and concessions. Many skeptics, even a future Elite Four trainer, Yu Osoria, who hasn't been born yet, believe that the ILTEP has some shady business, yet there is no evidence to prove it. The only possible quirk about it is that the cost of the whole renovation was never disclosed, but experts estimate that with all the technology in the stadium and the venue itself cost about $1.5 billion. Nothing important would happen to ILTEP for a few years, but the events that we did pass are the birth of Layla Harris in 2001, and in 2003, Ama Soria is born on March 5th and Yu Osoria a year later. Around 2005, a terrorist attack happened inside a Georgia company, a company that mostly relied on Pokemon to do duties that were dangerous to humans. However, this was not the average attack, as not a single human was hurt, but the Pokemon were. Agents from the FBI launched an investigation into the attack and found the culprits, an organization of domestic far-right Republicans who named themselves Team Arrow. Their motives for the attack were to eliminate the dependency that humans and Pokemon had, to prevent an inevitable and unwinnable revolt against humanity if they should ever turn against humanity itself. The United States government would declare them terrorists, and this group was so disliked that in 2016, the two underground rivaling organizations, Mercenary League and the Coalition, made a temporary ceasefire with each other and executed Operation Quiver, when the two launched a full-scale assault on a Team Arrow base, practically recreating the ATF Waco raid except in Wisconsin, and about 3 acres of land were wiped off the fucking state. Later in 2017, some asshole with her face covered and mute by choice wandered into the stadium with the intent to kick the ass of anyone she faced, which is exactly what every individual battling in ILTEP says before they have their asses handed to them. This is quite a common thing to happen in pro leagues, as many people want to avoid being embarrassed or ridiculed on Twitter and be called various racial slurs. But something was different about this girl, as she didn't bite the curb in defeat but punched through the Elite Four and even defeated the champion of ILTEP. This asshole, who happens to be inspired by my ex-girlfriend, was Layla Harris, going by the pseudonym of Marsh, was a new champion of ILTEP, but there was a small problem. Layla came from Miamisburg, Ohio, and was listed as a runaway who had been missing for 2 months, and of all fucking places to turn up, here she is. Which explains her face covering in mute speech. Housing her with the knowledge that she was a runaway would land ILTEP in hot water, but thousands of people just witnessed a new champion be throned, and not only would sales drop if she didn't return, ILTEP had to honor the victory. So the mysterious higher-ups of ILTEP came to an agreement that Layla would still be the champion, and had every employee that could possibly know about Layla sign various non-disclosure agreements to keep her identity secret, and to further lower the chances of her being recognized. She was given special contact lenses that changed the color of her eyes, contact lenses that were able to be worn all the time. Around this time, Ama Soria was talking to Layla through online messaging, and later their relationship would become very strong, to the point Ama revealed her real job, working for Mercenary League. But since Layla was now under non-disclosure agreements, she wasn't allowed to show her face or reveal her voice to Ama, which would be the catalyst of their relationship falling apart. This event left a traumatizing effect on Ame, who would have issues moving on from it. Speaking of Ame, this would be a great time to focus on her. Ame was born in the city of El Paso. Ame is also a college dropout from the El Paso Community College, claiming that she dropped out because she had a better use of her time. She was studying computer sciences and graphic design, and was also a part of the softball team before being ejected after a verbal altercation that turned physical. In her time in the league, she would come across a truck that was moving Pokemon to Juarez for illegal fight-to-the-death battles, and would befriend a black, red, and white Ralts, who would be her most loyal sidekick, both in battles and in her secret job. As this world evolved and grew, she would learn more about her past life, where she learns that she was once in a gang, which explains the Pokemon's sociopathic behavior and overall tendency to be an asshole. Fast forward some years later, October 2022, Ame would meet her variant from another universe, A1770 Ame. These two would make for quite the team as they got into a shootout As they would get into a shootout inside a fucking Starbucks with someone whose name was Amanda admitted that she didn't want to kill Pokemon Ame and wanted out of the coalition. After a shootout and a Zaza smoking session in the hotel Ame had been living in the past 2 months. Pokemon Ame finally participates in the ill-tipped battle over life, making it to Marsh until some asshole from Team Arrow, known as James and their leader, who had a bomb that was specifically engineered to kill only Pokemon and himself if needed, crashes the event and tries to take hostages. But thanks to the quick thinking by Gardevoir, Ame's evolved routes. She saves Marsh from being shot, and Pokemon Ame manages to grab onto James fleeing. While this is happening, Gardevoir notices an aura from Marsh and learns that Marsh is Layla. With this knowledge, Gardevoir acts as Layla's temporary guard, killing several Arrow members, and when Layla is taken to safety, she asks, "Why are you protecting me?" And Gardevoir responds,
So that's what you sound like.
then leaves to find her trainer, while A1770 Ame races to get to the roof of the El Paso Times building, where PKM and Ame and James landed. PKM and Ame would attempt to fight James, but she ends up being killed, which is when A1770 Ame would arrive to pop a cap in the back of James's head. Pokemon Ame dies in front of her, and since the Crimson verse requires the existence of a parent file, which was Pokemon Ame, to be alive to support the visiting copy file, which is A1770, she contemplates suicide until Jirachi, the witch Pokemon, arrives to save everything. A1770 wishes for Pokemon Ame to come back to life, and in her brief death, Pokemon Ame learns that there is no God or Jesus, and that the real God is a fucking Pokemon named Arceus. Later the next day, the two would have a battle and bid their farewells, at least for now anyways. A week later, Ame learns of Marsh being Layla, something that reignites the mental disaster in her head, as she was told by Gardevoir about the encounter. Another week would pass, and along with Gardevoir and her recently found sister she didn't know she had, and Niltip's Elite Four trainer, Yua, embark on a nationwide journey in pursuit of further greatness, accepting the Expeditions Challenge, a national Pokemon Trainer League, to become the country's best, yet a familiar someone will follow them in the shadow.